Most analysts are getting tariffs wrong, and I'm going to explain what this is going to mean for Amazon sellers over the next 2 to 3 years. And I'm going to take a long view against the short view. My name is Stephen Pope. I'm the founder of My Amazon Guy, and we're a 400 brand agency. And so I have lots of access to hundreds and hundreds of accounts on Amazon, many of which manufacture in China. And with Trump announcing up to 245% tariffs, many of us are wondering, WTF, what's going to be happening next? For those of us who have read literature like The Black Swan by Talib Nassim, and he speaks about how Black Swan events, highly improbable, impactful events, can really change everything. And so this is a Black Swan event, but it's not the only one that's going to occur. So in my opinion, this is just the start of a series of events that's going to happen. Now, if we look back in time at Trump's sound bites from 20, 30, 40 years ago, he's been on record about tariffs a very long time. And so when you play the sound bites and you listen to him, this isn't about free trade. It's about fair trade. But even more than that, it's about U.S. manufacturing jobs or making things in America. So why does this matter to Amazon sellers? Well, first of all, if you're wondering, should I complete my China order right now? The answer is probably no. You can't make it profitably at this time. Are there many alternatives or stopgap solutions? Absolutely. Could you negotiate a new deal with your China manufacturer? Probably. Could you have them pay the tariff or the import duties and all that stuff? Possibly. But at the end of the day, the signal is very clear. It's going to come back to America. Now, could you take your kitchen knife that you make in China for $1.09 and bring that to the States and be anywhere near competitive? Not yet, but soon, potentially. So if China has devalued their currency for decades and has allowed a trade imbalance of basically 4-to-1, so for every $1 of goods we send to China, China sends us 4. That's a pretty big trade imbalance. Now, public statistics are something like China has 2% of its GDP coming to the United States. Sounds like a small number, seems pretty unreported though, in my opinion. Now, we know that Trump's administration is going to close all the loopholes and try and make this thing fairer, but the reason for it is the most important. So Temu, Shein, they've stopped advertising on Google. They went from like rank 4 all the way down to rank 64 and the apps on Apple and all that good stuff. And that's because their loophole, I even forget the name of the phrase of the loophole, but basically it allowed them to ship stuff into the United States without paying duties if it was under $800. That's gone. So all of these loopholes are being closed, but why? So that China stopped sending its cheap garbage into the United States. I'm quoting some official of some sort. And Trump has basically signaled he's going to have a permanent 10% tariff almost worldwide. He wants to get rid of income tax and basically tax other countries to make them pay their fair share so that the United States, which basically gives away free military to half the world and does all the protectionism stuff, gets its fair shake. And he's shutting down all of these foreign aid programs, pulling us out of all of these international programs, the WHO, potentially the United Nations, NAFTA, you name it, it goes on. And so as an Amazon seller, you have to take the long view here. The short view sucks. There's no question about that. The short-term pain that we're all going to experience is immense. And it's not just specific to the Amazon selling community. This is going to be far-reaching, right? So the claim is that there were 15 million illegals that entered the United States during the Biden administration and that Trump is going to get rid of every single one of them. Well, what does that do to real estate? What does that do to the housing market? Well, if rents are sky high and then you take 15 million people out of that, I don't know how many families that equates to, but significant number, that's going to bring rent costs down. Trump's already got the oil cost down to $63 a barrel. I bet you that's going to get under $50 by end of year, potentially even as low as $40. And so energy costs are going to come down. So what happens when tariffs go up, energy costs come down, and the ability to buy real estate becomes cheaper? This creates an environment where you can start to build manufacturing plants. Labor will be able to want to take these jobs because there's now a higher wage, right? And there isn't cheap labor on the market that's taking advantage of all of the Social Security benefits that have been going to the illegals, or Medicare that's been going to non-citizens, et cetera. So this is Trump's plan. Whether you like it or not, these are pretty much the hard, cold facts. And so as an Amazon seller, you have to look at this and realize that your long-term play in China is almost non-existent. And so anything that you make in China today has to come back to the States eventually. Now, between now and eventually is the real big question. And many people are going to go to Vietnam as the stopgap solution. I think that's probably okay in 2025. It may even be okay in 2026. But by 2027, you have to be back in the States to manufacture your goods. And a lot of people are just going to be puzzled, wondering how that's possible, how the economics are going to work. But you just have to look at the inevitability of this. So even if you don't believe that inevitability, and this is above my geopolitics pay grade, the fact of the matter is you can't manufacture in China right now at a profit. And Amazon has pulled out of manufacturing in China. And we've got chip manufacturers like NVIDIA saying they're going to invest $500 billion into manufacturing in the States. This is going to cause a chain reaction of other investments. We even had, Honda or something like that, that's going to make its cars in the United States as well. So these are all things that are falling into place right now. And it's going to cause a big manufacturing boon in the United States. But the problem is this doesn't happen overnight, right? It is going to take 2, maybe 3+ years to even get a baseline of manufacturing going. It takes a year to even get the buildings like half built, right? Like not even fully built, but just like built enough. And so then after you get the buildings built, then you have to get the machinery and the tooling done. That's going to take 6 to 12 months. Then you got to get the right people to obviously do the tooling, then the right people to do the manufacturing. And so after all this is said and done, it could be close to 2.5, 3 years. So you're planning right now, if you got 5,000 units in order in China, maybe you pull it back to 1,000 as a stopgap just to see what's happening. You're betting middle term instead of long term, and you're like, well, I don't really know what to do yet. There's no such thing as a first mover advantage in geopolitics. There's really no such thing as a first mover in logistics. So you kind of have to wait to see what the market does and then make your move from there. But if you've been following me for years, I've always stated to never run out of stock. Well, this is the first time you might hear me say it's probably better to go out of stock than to completely ruin your margins. However, I have also been saying have a year's supply of stock. I basically said just-in-time supply chain management was dead. And I think I did that post-mortem back in 2020, a long, long time ago. And so for those that have been paying attention and following me and actually using my suggestions, you're ahead of the game. For those of you that are just new to the channel, hit that subscribe button because this sort of analysis could save you thousands of dollars in the future. But for now, if you do nothing, you're going to be ahead of the pack. Why do I say that? Because most people that are doing these knee-jerk reactions and trying to figure this stuff out are going to make more mistakes than average. So let's say that 100% of the market that makes a move, 70% of them make a mistake and 30% get ahead of the market. Those are really bad odds. And you as a business owner cannot make those 30-70 bets right now. It would be better to make the negative 5% bet, i.e. go out of stock, lose some margin short term or lose some sales, that is. Let your ASIN lose some ranking, which is not great. But this is a business decision. Business decisions are when you have to choose between two not so great options, but you're trying to mitigate the worst of the two, right? And so it's like the lesser two evils. Option one, keep buying product out of China, but pay massive tariffs. Option two, let it go out of stock. Between those two options, letting it go out of stock feels a little bit safer. But between letting it go out of stock and say, manufacture it out of Vietnam as a temporary stopgap, Vietnam looks pretty sexy at the very moment. Now, it still takes a lot of time. You got to get the samples. You have to check the goods. You have to see if they're actually able to make your product. There's certain countries that can make certain things a lot better. It's pretty easy to find a country that can make apparel. It's not so easy to find a country that can make all the kitchen gadgets, surprisingly, like metals and wood and, combining the two, so to speak. Very, very difficult. And by the way, we just passed 60,000 followers over on LinkedIn. And some of this analysis that I've been giving right now is also over on LinkedIn. And, you'll see a lot of the posts that I've made like this. I'm going to scroll through to a post I made about the countries that are available to manufacture. And I'm trying to figure out where I made this post. So bear with me a second. All right, found it. So in here, Vietnam was the number one choice, according to AI, for a China alternative. And it led with apparel and footwear. I'm pretty sure Nike and Adidas and a bunch of other places are using Vietnam right now. They're probably going to see, dedicated tariffs in these sections. I would be very careful about doing Vietnam apparel or footwear at this very moment. Electronic toys and furniture, though, I think are a lot safer than some of these alternatives. And so if you're looking at one of those categories, Vietnam might be a pretty good option. India, always been pretty much the god of textiles, footwear again. We're also seeing electronics. So, it's very, very different cultures between Vietnam and India, but a major crossover between these two countries. But there's probably some major advantages, disadvantages to break down on why you'd pick one over the other. Mexico does not have that much cheaper of a manufacturing facility than the United States, especially when you factor in tariffs and the risk of future tariffs. So I personally would not make anything in Mexico if I was a US-based Amazon seller. I would wait and figure out how to make it in the United States specifically, because I think that if you're going to do automotive, there's a ton of automotive manufacturing in the States. You just have to hold out and make it work. Medical devices, that might be a little bit of a different story because there's some severe margin differences in this particular category, and safety protocols in the States might get away with a lot less safety protocols in Mexico to protect those margins. Ethics can be debated. Aerospace, very similar in that sense. But home appliances, this is probably one I might take a gander at in Mexico. But again, I would prefer paying 15, 20% higher costs in the United States over Mexico, which is about what I've seen on these manufacturing quotes between Mexico and the United States. And if Trump's got a 25% tariff, boom, that just makes the States 5, 10% better. Malaysia, this is probably not on a lot of people's radars right now. Here we have electronics, machinery, automotive. These categories seem to be coming up a lot on these top suggested countries. Thailand also having very similar automotive and electronics. Anything related to food, I would absolutely do in the United States. I would not do that anywhere else. But textiles making a third appearance here. Textiles is one I would absolutely export. Probably, me personally, I'd probably look at India personally for textiles at this very moment. But if you really like pad thai and you want to visit Thailand, you need an excuse. Textiles might not be a bad option over there. They're fairly good at textiles in Thailand. I have visited, I've had the sticky mango rice, and I've touched the clothing and textiles over there. Pretty good. Indonesia, for those that don't know, that's right next to the Philippines. They've got footwear, textiles, electronics, and furniture. Bangladesh, textiles and footwear. Turkey, I also recently visited. That's where I got my nice little hair transplant. You'll notice it's not fully grown in yet. A little red mark there because it's still got some healing to do. But I'm 6 months out from doing my hair transplant. I'm doing pretty good. So Turkey's got some things that they're really best at, and hair transplants would be the very thing I would go over to Turkey for. So if you're a male who's balding and got some low testosterone challenges, get on that TRT and go over to Turkey and get your hair transplant to feel a little bit better. Improves your charisma by 8%, according to the data I read. Turkey also having automotive and machinery as well as some textiles. So not hard to find textiles. Pretty much throw a rock and hit any country. United States supposedly is the best at aerospace, world leader there. Medical devices, similar to Mexico. Automotive, it's a major producer, and it's going to probably go up to world leader status here in the next couple of years. Pharmaceuticals, which you don't sell on Amazon, so that one's kind of out. And apparel. So technical and sportswear specifically, which is probably a higher grade item, anywhere from the $20 to $40 range, most likely. Germany and a lot of EU countries, I'd be very suspicious of unless you have a premium brand at this time. A lot of reasons for that between the fact that there's a little bit of head-to-head over the Ukraine thing and the military, but the United States does have a pretty substantial list over in Germany with its military. Let me look up how much they have over there. 35,000 troops, according to this search here, over in Germany from the United States. So we're pretty paired over with Germany right now. I don't see that going anywhere, but they're going to have a lot of the same challenges with immigration that the United States is trying to fix right now. And there's pretty much a one-to-one crossover in terms of United States and Germany skill sets. Switzerland, I do have a client that makes tweezers out of Switzerland, and they sell the tweezers for upwards of $40. I've had that client for like 8 years. They've done really well with us over the years. And so I do know that it is possible to make things out of Switzerland. I have clients that have done it. But the key here is luxury goods. So if you're going to try and do luxury goods out of Europe, I'd say, yep, that's probably a safe pick. If you're trying to do something not luxury, I would definitely not do that. One of the things that you'll see that is not on this list consistently is, and I'll probably need to blow this up so you can read it a little bit better. But basically what we have not seen is a lot of the things that China is good at does not show up in many of these alternative countries. We're not seeing kitchenware. We're not seeing, kitchen knives and silverware and Tupperware and some of these low grade, under $20 plastics and metals pretty much not showing up anywhere. But we have automotive footwear showing up in Czech Republic and Brazil here. This list was so long I had to post more of it in my comment section. We got Pakistan, which is also very similar to India on the textiles front. Russia with machinery and military, energy equipment. These are not necessarily things that most Amazon sellers are going to be looking at. Saudi Arabia in energy equipment again. Food processing, probably not on the list of any Amazon seller. South Africa, a lot of geopolitics issues over there. I'd probably ignore that one right now. Ireland with medical devices, Netherlands with pharmaceuticals and food processing. So the challenge you have here is that your options in China alternatives for most of the goods that are made out of China is very sparse. So hurry up and wait kind of situation where you're trying to figure out what to do. And the most likely thing you should do is nothing. Inaction, hodl, hold on, don't look. Now, having said all that, what can you do in the meantime? Raise your prices. Don't raise them 50% overnight, but raise them 2 to 5% frequently as you go into the Christmas season. The likelihood of us seeing stock out events going into Christmas across major sectors on Amazon is substantial. Therefore, get your Christmas shopping in now. You're going to save hundreds of dollars off your Christmas shopping if you do it now. As a seller, though, raising your prices early and betting long, slowing down your sales, knowing that in the Christmas season, a lot of your competitors are going to be stocked out, and betting long is something that the precious metals industry, I used to work for APMEX, American Precious Metals Exchange, and I grew their website traffic by several million people, unique visitors, 10 million, I think it was, year over year, back in 2016, 15, somewhere in that range. And so I know a thing or two about gold and silver. And anytime there was a lot of volatility in the market, APMEX would make this decision to bet long, raise their prices early, knowing that the sector would stock out and there wouldn't be a lot of availability. Similarly, you can do the same thing as an Amazon seller. You can slow down your sales now, and it's painful. It's hard to watch. It takes a lot of perseverance and fortitude, discipline, if you will. But if you do that when Christmas rolls around and everybody else is stocked out, you can jack your prices up almost 100% and you'll be pulling in those margins. You have to pay a little bit of storage in the meantime. You got to hold on to it, and it's difficult. But for those that have that year's supply of stock, you get the best of both worlds. You can sell now and you can sell later, and you can raise your prices later. But at the end of the day, where's the hockey puck going in our metaphor of sorts today? You're going to have to find a way to make the stuff in the United States. One other tip I'll give you is If you're looking for your next category to launch in, buy something that's already made in the United States, such as supplements or beauty products. Those are categories I would bet very highly on right now, especially for new product launches, and avoid all of this tariff bullshit in the meantime. My name is Stephen Pope. I'm the founder of My Amazon Guy. You may need to book a coaching call over at myamazonguy.com/coaching to get help with your unique situation, or add a comment on here if you want to ask me anything, and we'll build content around things that will help you. Thanks again, and we'll keep you up to date on what we're seeing with tariffs, but this is going to be a very painful couple of years.